You're listening to The Pursuit with James Griffin, a podcast by Crosspoint City Church that exists to relentlessly pursue those far from God to help them know and follow Jesus. Thanks for tuning in. Now let's listen to today's episode.
Welcome back. I'm Carlos Fernandez. I'm here with Matt Moody and our lead pastor, James Griffin. What's going on, y'all?
What's up? Good to see you, man. I'm barely here, but I'm here.
Yeah. Well, before we get into the podcast, man, you were out of town or out of the country. All right. So tell us a little bit about your trip.
Which is why I say I'm barely here, bro. Yeah. I'm day 2 back in the country.
It's the worst.
It's the worst. So feeling the jet lag about right now. I am not gonna lie, man. I'm like in a fog. So anyway, you boys are gonna have to carry me through this one. But great trip. I was in Oxford, England, doing some work for my doctoral program. So once a semester, we travel somewhere to take an in-person class. And this class was in Oxford at the University of Oxford. So, I mean, super cool, you know. I said to our church over the weekend, being in a place like that just reminds me that our nation is still in diapers. Mm-hmm. I mean, we're so young. We have so little history. I mean, I'm walking around Oxford finding historical sites on accident. That's how you know you're in an old place. You know, you just walk up on stuff. You're like, oh, that's where these people died. And that's where that guy preached. And this is where John Wesley birthed Methodism and all of the things, you know. Got to see the places where C.S. Lewis and Tolkien hung out and wrote books and had discussions, and got to visit Lewis's grave and the church he attended. Also got to go see the church where he preached his very first sermon.
That's cool.
And so all that was really impactful on me. I mean, C.S. Lewis, he's just shaped so much of my thinking and preaching. And I mean, he truly was, in terms of conversions, one of the most significant conversions of the last century. Mm-hmm. So to go and stand in some of these places where he stood and wrote and spoke, very significant, but great trip.
Yeah, if you weren't at Crosspoint over the weekend, we had a guest speaker, Rob Wilton, who was awesome. Yeah. But it's funny, we showed the bumper of Pastor James in Oxford at C.S. Lewis gravesite, and there was an audible, like, not gasp, but like people like, whoa, like super amazed and like really cool that you were standing there.
Yeah.
I'm sure it was every gathering, every location, I hope.
Yeah.
There's just something about that name and for you to be there.
Yeah. Yeah. I need to put some of that stuff up on my Instagram so people can see it. But I did give the 1 o'clock a treat, you know, at 1. Nobody else got to see this, but I showed the 1 o'clock here in Cartersville a picture of me also sitting at C.S. Lewis's desk in his house holding his pipe, which was great. My wife was like, "Did you put that in your mouth?" I said, "Are you crazy, woman?" Of course I didn't put that. I don't know who's had that in their mouth, but it ain't going in my mouth. But
you don't have to lie to us.
No, man,
listen. What's that?
You don't have to lie to us.
I was watching it, man, and I was like, I know he didn't put it in his mouth. He's holding it like a cigarette. You said that he ain't even holding it right.
I don't even know how to smoke a pipe, bro. So I'm holding it with 2 fingers, you know. But yeah, glad to be back on American soil, boys.
Yeah, no, that's what's up, man. Yeah, C.S. Lewis is awesome. I'm reading a book right now called Imagine Heaven. And I read The Great Divorce a long time ago. And I was just like, man, C.S. Lewis is a genius. So I was kind of jelly that you were there and I wasn't. All right. So
Jelly is jealous for our over 30 crowd.
For all our old people. I'm just playing. All right. But Moody mentioned it. We had a guest preacher in the house, Pastor Rob Wilton. And what I've heard is he's a hooper. So next time he comes in, we got to play some basketball. So
just remember, he's old, so he can't play like he used to.
He's totally fine. Totally fine.
He's probably better than Carlos.
Probably. All right. But he preached on Genesis 22, and he talked about giving our first and best to God because that's what ultimately God did. Yep. And so when the Bible talks about giving your first and best, it always starts with God. And I love that he gave first. I mean, this whole entire series, God gave, is out of John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his one and only son. And so when we see generosity like that, what are we supposed to do? I know we're supposed to respond from God's grace, right? It's not a way that we earn God's favor, but it's a way to respond to it. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, no, I mean, you nailed it, bro, that generosity is a response. One of the things that we talked about as I was in Oxford last weekend, the class I took was on evangelism. Mm-hmm. And we talked about how the work of mission and evangelism, that it is rooted in the very nature and character of God, that it originates with God. It's not something that originates with the church. It's not something that finds its roots even in human need, but it originates with God himself. That out of love for his world, this is John 3:16, God gave. And he gave the highest quality gift that could be given, which was his only son.
Yeah.
Which is fascinating to think. It's not like God gave his second best for us. I'll give you my leftovers and that'll be good enough. But God's like, no, I've got something to give for your sake.
Yeah.
And God initiated. That gift originated with him. And God sent the highest quality gift that he could have sent, that he could have gave to save sinners like you and me. And anything that we give, time, talent, treasure, whatever it is, anything that we give is meant to be given in response to that. That I'm not giving to earn anything. I'm not giving because I think I deserve something from God. But I'm looking at what God first gave, his first and best. And in response to that, I am opening my hands, opening my life, and I am giving in return. So yeah, man, you nailed it. It's always a response.
Yeah. So as we think about, like, when we hear that though, first and best, the way you said it, man, the best quality gift he could give us.
Yeah.
A lot of people think when we say first is amount, right? And it's all about like, hey, we should give this amount of time or this amount of money. So for us, like, how do we explain that when it comes to generosity, giving your first and best? Like, how can we make that into kind of like plain language?
Yeah, man, I love it. I think first speaks to priority. Okay. I love what our location pastor said over the weekend. You know, they spoke to recurring giving. So this was primarily about financial generosity. And he said, you know, when you set up recurring giving, you don't have to renegotiate with yourself every month on what you're going to give to God. And I think that captures the significance of first. It's I'm going to make a decision that whatever I get, I'm like the first thing that I'm going to give out of that is going back to him. I'm going to give it to his church. I'm going to give it to his kingdom. And so my priority is that I will seek the kingdom of God and his righteousness above all things. And I'm just going to trust that God's going to take care of whatever else I need after I prioritize what is important to him. And so again, first is about priority. Okay. Now, I will say for me personally, and you guys probably have stories you can share as well. For me personally, best means most. And this is typically how I challenge our people. First, so don't give God your leftovers. Best, give God most, you know. I share a story at our Vision Ambassador retreats of my family looking for a house. You know, we had this kid 4 years ago that jacked up the floor plan of our house. And so we were looking for other houses so that we could get our kids on the same floor. And it was during that season, man, when the market was crazy and you couldn't get in an offer fast enough. And all of a sudden, house prices, they started to climb. Mortgage rates started to climb. And I started to realize when I was looking at our finances that if we bought the house that we needed at that point, that we would be spending more on a mortgage than we would be investing in the kingdom of God. And at that point, we're like, hey, we're not going to do this. You know, I don't want my best, which is my most, to go to a house payment. I want my best and my most to go to what matters to the heart of God. I want his kingdom to be the thing that I invest in over and above all else.
Yeah.
And so we renovated our house, we made it work, and you know, it is what it is. But that's how I would frame it for people. First, priority, best is most.
Yeah. So you didn't wake up there, right? Like you just didn't, like you always did that. So like real quick, I know it's not in our notes. How'd you get there? Like what happened? What'd you figure out? Like what was that thing that helped you get to that point where I say, hey, it's the most too. It's not just the first, but it's the most.
While you think, I'm going to share a story,
go ahead.
Right? Back when I was in middle school, I remember at my old church, you know, my buddy, my best friend at the time, had gotten, you know, a ton of cash. And I don't know if it was for his birthday, a collection of that, to doing chores, to working for, I don't know. But he had a ton of money. And I'll never forget, we're in Sunday school, and I think we're talking about generosity, and he places all of it. So he places the most, right? First and best being most. And he puts it in the giving. And at the time, I remember thinking, what a fool. Right? I had this wrestle internally.
Yeah.
I was like, well, like, you don't have to give all of it, right? Like we're taught 10%, just give 10%.
Yeah.
And, you know, hearing you talk, and as I look back, you know, gosh, 30, a little under 30 years ago, knowing in his heart, his response was, my first and best in this moment is going to be the most, and it's going to be all of this abundance the Lord has given me. And so that has always stuck with me, Carlos, in regard to your question, like, where did it start? That story always sticks with me. Anytime I want to hold on to my first and my best, anytime I want to hold on to the little bit extra the Lord provides, I always think back to that story and I go, you know what is the most? What is the first? What is the priority? What am I going to give the Lord first? And then if we're talking generosity, how much of that? And not allowing, you know, Pastor, you talk about giving by revelation or giving by, what's the first
reason.
one? Reason. Yeah. Always getting past reason and giving by revelation. Lord, how much would you have me give? So it started back, you know, watching a dude that I thought was being foolish, but actually he embodied generosity as a young guy.
Yeah, no, I love that. I just think that there's always moments or a moment that just changes the way we do things.
That's right.
Yeah. And so for you, it was a moment.
That's right.
Well, and mine is not too dissimilar. I mean, part of it for me was information. You know, I think as you grow as a follower of Jesus and you spend more time in the Word, and you know, you read books and you listen to guys preach on generosity and finances and all those things. Like, for me, I'm always challenged by that. Like, one of the ways that I learn is by hearing and by reading. And so I was challenged over the years by the information that was coming to me. But I think one of the most impactful experiences that I had that changed how I saw generosity happened in West Africa years ago. You know, I've done a lot of work in West Africa over the years. Our church is doing a lot of work there. But I remember the very first time I traveled to West Africa, man, it rocked me to the core. And I came back from one of the poorest countries on the planet, you know, hanging out in these bush villages all week where there are people who are living in mud huts with no electricity, no running water. People are dying of preventable illnesses. I mean, it's wild, man. And I'm meeting Christians in these villages who have more joy than me. And I was so convicted, man. And I just remember coming back home and I was disgusted with how we were living. My wife thought I had lost my mind, you know, because I had this experience and she had no framework for what I had just experienced. But that experience taught me that I can live off of a lot less than I think I need. And I can be joyful with less than I think I need. And so, I don't know, that just really challenged me to be more open-handed with what God had entrusted to me, not just for the sake of my own joy, but for the sake of blessing other people. It's like, man, if this is the kind of need that exists in the world, and not just physical need, but spiritual need, what am I doing to address that? Because here's the truth, and this has always stuck with me. I mean, the three of us, why were we born here and not there? Why did God put us in the United States of America, where we've got opportunity and money and resources and jobs and all these, like, more than we need, right? And why weren't we born in some bush village on the other side of the world? Well, we have nothing. And the only conclusion that I could come to is that God put us here and he entrusted more to us because more is now required of us. Like, to whom much is given, more is required. So I'm here for a reason. And how I steward what God has given me really, really matters, man.
Yeah. No, that's good, man. Yeah, I was thinking when I was in college, I had a buddy of mine who I literally talked to every week. And he wasn't making much. He got his first job in medical sales. It was medical device sales. And again, he wasn't making much. He was kind of like in that intern level. And something clicked in him. Like, he said, hey, man, I need to start giving to the church. And he started giving, and he said it was tight. Like, he was, you know, eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Like, it was like, but he said, I want to trust God in this way. And now that I see him, he's making a decent amount of money. He's has a lot more than he used to in his college days, he still gives to the church. And that just kind of shaped me early on, because we were like in our, late teens, maybe early 20s at that point when he was talking about this. And I was like, man, if you could do it, I could do it. And then the second thing, that's why I said moment, is there's a moment or moments. I say there were moments where I was like, man, I need to put my money where my mouth is, right? And I just want to invest in the things that I believe in. And I greatly believe, I believe that the church is the greatest force on earth, and it's going to do everything that God is saying it's going to do. And I remember one of my mentors said that he still believes that the church is the best avenue for the gospel to be shared.
For sure.
And so for me, I was just like, man, we need to just invest in that. And that's, in everything too, like giving your first and best, not just in money, but I will say once your money goes, everything else follows. Like it's easier to give your time. It's easier to give your resources, because you gave one of the most precious things that we would call, especially in America, to us, right?
What's what Jesus says, man, where your treasure is, there your heart will be.
Yeah.
So when I invest in God's church and I invest in God's kingdom, I begin to love those things more. Yeah. And as I love those things more, I want to give more to those things. Yeah. I don't want to withhold anything from the Lord. Yeah. No, because I understand why I'm here, man. The God put me here to make a difference. I got one shot to get it right. One chance to live a life that would impact eternity. Yeah. And when you think like that, you steward all that God has entrusted to you very differently.
Yeah, no, for sure. I still think about that line you said, it was probably like 2.5 years ago. It says, if you're not giving here, it's totally fine. Just go to a place that you would give. Like you didn't say it that way, but you said it more punchy. And I was driving on the way home. I was like, that's a bar. Let's go. Because that's the idea. So I got another question. It's kind of like a little bit different.
Can I go to Moody real quick? I think you wanted to add something.
Yeah. Well, Carlos, something you said triggered my mind, right? You talked about it's easy to give your time and your talent. And so I was thinking about that, and then treasure is a little different. Well, time, we're all given the same amount of time, right? We don't earn time, right?
24 hours in a day.
That's right.
Yeah.
Talent, we're all given certain talent. Like you're all born with a talent, right? Yeah. You may invest in that talent, right? By how you learn, physically work out, whatever that is. But you naturally, like you've got a talent. And the way this is working out in my mind, treasure is the only one of those three that you actually earn, right? You have to work to
have a job.
Yeah, right. We're talking money, right? You go to a job, you try to get that promotion to get more money. And as I'm thinking about that in my mind, well, yeah, it's easy to give time because I got 24 hours in a day. It's easy to give my talent because that was what was given to me. So, and most of the time, people's talents, they enjoy using their talents. Treasure is the one thing that I've earned. Like I put my blood, sweat, and tears into that job, into that promotion, into whatever. And I think that's why maybe sometimes if people go, why is this so hard? Like they're talking, why is this so much harder for me to really hear what these guys are saying? Well, it's probably because you feel like you earned that and the Lord didn't actually give it to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, it's a fundamental misunderstanding in who is providing.
Yeah.
I even think about what's written in the book of Deuteronomy, and I can't remember the exact reference off the top of my head, but that our ability to even earn wealth comes from the Lord.
That's right.
And I don't know how many people believe that. Like I think as hardworking Americans, what we think is what you just said. My ability to earn wealth comes from me, man. And I have what I have because I busted my tail and I did the thing. And, that's partly true. Like I don't want to, discredit the person who's put in a lot of effort and gotten an education and who, just built the business or whatever it is. Like it's partly true. You put in a lot of hard work, but what you can't miss is that God has given you everything that you needed to do what you did, to earn the money that you've earned. Again, the fact that he put you in this country at this time in history, that he gave you certain talents and abilities and intellect and all of the things. So you can't compartmentalize it like that and think like, okay, God gives me the other stuff and, I did this. Well, in reality, God did it for you all. Yeah. Or did it all for you. Excuse me. I said that poorly, but yeah, man, I think what you described is a real danger, man, in the place where we live. A lot of times we think of ourselves as owners.
Yeah, that's right.
Because we consider ourselves to be earners and we fail to see God as the provider that he is.
That's it.
Yeah. No, and that's just a good reminder that God gave you all of your time, all of your time. And so, all right, so here's a good question. What if, or is it possible to be generous and still not give our first? Like, what if we still give a lot, but what if it's not our first? Like, what is that possible?
All right, so I'll answer with an illustration, okay? And you can answer it after the illustration.
Okay.
All right, let's say, man, I invite you and Kara over to our house for dinner, you know.
Okay.
Bro, come Friday night, we want y'all to come over. Dude, we're going to hang, we're going to throw down, we're just going to enjoy an evening together. It's going to be great, right? And imagine you get to my house, and instead of real dishes, I got paper plates and Solo cups, you know. Instead of actual silverware, I just got like the plastic forks and spoons, you know. And then all of a sudden, when dinner time rolls around, I'm not pulling anything out of the oven. I'm pulling the spaghetti out of the fridge from 2 nights ago.
Gross.
I'm like, all right, man, I made this a few nights ago, and thank y'all for coming. We're gonna have leftovers. I'm not gonna spend time slaving away in the kitchen or putting some meat on the smoker. I'm not gonna do any of that, man. I'm not going to prioritize you and Kara in that way. But when you come to my house for dinner, I'm going to give you what was left over from the family dinner 2 nights ago. Here's what I would ask. Is that generous? Have I been generous toward you in giving you the leftover spaghetti?
No. And you better not.
And so my point is, when we do that with God, how do we claim that somehow this is generosity?
Yeah.
When I reserve the right to prioritize for myself what I want to spend my money on, what I want to spend my time on, what I want to spend my talents and abilities on, and then I say to God, hey, God, you can have the leftovers. Hey, God, I'm not going to give you what is first. I'm going to give myself what is first. And then whatever I have left over, after I have spent all of this on me, God, I will give that to you. That's not generosity, man. That is selfishness is what it is.
That's so funny, man, because even when you say that, I go to the example of, because I think there's someone going, nah, totally, I get that. I would never throw out the plastic plates. Like, you're going to have the nice, stuff. I'm
breaking out the china for Carlos is what we're going to do. That's right.
It's old people stuff. But I think about, you do get the grill out, and you got the steaks, but that big, fat, juicy steak goes on your plate. And then Lowe's gets the secondary steak that you bought from the other store. Right? It's the same idea. It's just a little more reality for us, because I think we think we're generous because we give. But sometimes that's not response-based giving. That's just either obligation, checking a box, or just, all right, I did my thing. Now when Pastor James talks about it on a Sunday, or they say, hey, if you give thanks, man, I can raise my, praise God, I give. But are you giving your first and best? Are you giving the big, fat, juicy steak over to the Lord? Yeah. And then you eat what is still sufficient for you. Right? Because I think we just fear, well, what's left over might not be sufficient. But what's left over, or we call it leftover, like, you still got an awesome steak. Right? That's there, right? You still have resources. God is not asking you to give things where you cannot provide for family. He's not asking you to not, we've talked about this, to not even enjoy good things. He's asking for your first and best.
That's right. Well, bro, it goes back to that whole reason revelation thing you talked about. I think when you start with reason, the temptation is to break out the spreadsheet. You put all of your stuff on there. This is the mortgage, the car payments, the kids' activities. This is the Netflix subscription. This is the, all the utility bills, whatever it is. You put all your stuff on there, and then using reason, you go, okay, this is what I think I can give to the kingdom of God and not be too uncomfortable. And then the line item goes in the budget. All right, this is what I'm going to give financially. Revelation, you start at a very different place. Revelation is when you go and you meet with God in the secret place and you say, God, what do you want me to give? Just show me, tell me, reveal that to me. And I truly believe that if you seek an answer with a sincere heart, that God will reveal that to you. Mm-hmm. God, what do you want me to invest in your church and in your kingdom? And then what happens is that God reveals that to you. You know, he gives you some kind of number. And then you have to trust God to put in your hands what you need to give that. And then everything else falls around it. Mm-hmm. Now, for those of you who are hearing this, and you're like, bro, that sounds crazy. You know, that would never work. I know it works because this is how my wife and I have given for years and years now. Mm-hmm. God, what do you want us to give? And then we have this number and everything else falls around. And here's what's so crazy. We never miss the money that we've given.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, life works, and then we have some left over, and it's like, okay, man, I guess we can trust the Lord to do what he's calling us to do, and we're still going to live, and we're still going to be okay. And so the framework, that we've used here before, it's very simple. It may be oversimplified, but the whole idea is that you would give, and you'd save some, put some away, and then you would live off the rest, right? Mm-hmm. And again, for a lot of people, they invert that and they get it backwards. Like, I'm going to live, and maybe I'll save some. Yeah. And then if I have anything left over at the end of the month, I'll give a little bit.
Yeah.
But as Christians, we got to flip that thing on its head.
Yeah. And that's the easiest way to do a budget. Give, save, live, I do have to confess that I did give somebody leftovers, but it was catered. Okay. Wait, barbecue. Sorry, Braden and Lauren, if you're listening to this.
So
after
funny,
you said that in the sermon that one time, they just laughed at each other or laughed at us and text me. I was like, that's so bad. And then yesterday I had a group of young adults over and we ate with paper plates and plastic.
Listen, I've been eating with paper plates all week.
I didn't mean to just shame you on the podcast.
It's okay. It's okay. They know I love them.
You didn't have to say any of this out loud.
Hey, man, but next thing you know, one of the young adults come up to me and was like, hey, man, you don't love us. No, they still had good steak, though.
Those are your first and best paper plates.
That's right.
Yeah, but that means also, this is a good point, just to point to our next question, because it's all about your heart posture, right? I mean, the big thing is that the question is, like, how do we help people see that generosity is more about heart alignment than it is hitting a number or checking a box, right?
Yeah.
It's not just trying to look like you're giving the best. It's actually about, like, the way your heart is moving or responding to the gospel. And so even thinking, like, those examples, like somebody be convicted, like, what if that is my best, or whatever the case may be. But we're talking more about your heart. How's your heart aligning with the will of God and responding to the gospel? Like, how do we help people see that?
Yeah. Well, yeah, motivation really, really matters. I've talked quite a bit with a friend of mine about this. This is a friend who is investing in very intentional ways in the kingdom of God. His desire and his family's desire is to make a great impact. They're doing some incredible things, not only here, but across the world. And we've had that conversation about motivation. How do I know if I'm doing this for the right reasons? How do I know that I'm not doing this for me or with some, ulterior motive, but how do I know that I'm doing this like for the glory of God and that alone? And I think that's something that we all have to wrestle to the ground constantly. The why question really, really matters, because what we don't want to do is give out of guilt, duty, or obligation. Pastor James made me feel bad. I guess I got to give. Well, that ain't the right reason to do it. You don't want to give to get pats on the back. I'm going to give all of this money or time or effort or whatever because I want people to praise me or applaud me. You don't want to give to put God into your debt. I mean, you can't do that anyway. It's a stupid concept that like somehow you're going to do something for God. Now he owes you. That's silly. But this is the danger of the prosperity gospel.
Yeah.
Is I think I can obey and stroke a check and give some money, and all of a sudden God owes me health, wealth, and prosperity. It's silly, bro. It's heresy. It's a wrong motivation. To the point that we made earlier at the beginning, the right motivation is I give because God first gave. That my generosity is something that happens in response to the generosity of God. I'm in the world. We are in the world to be imitators of God. And the only way to imitate a generous God is to be generous.
Yeah.
I cannot truly reflect him in the world that he made if I live my life with closed hands. And so the only way I can make God known is to be generous like he was first generous to me.
Yeah. No, I love that. And for me, I think like again, you're not doing it because you want God to see you. I would say I started giving because I wanted to be obedient, right? And sometimes I had to lead my feelings. Sometimes you don't feel like giving. You don't feel like going and serving and giving of your time, your talents, your resources. Like you don't feel like doing that. But God did that. So you do that out of obedience. And I promise you, when you begin to see the fruit of what doing that does to you, or what happens in the world, that makes you a cheerful giver, right? Like I would say me and my wife were giving the most we've ever given. And it's kind of cool. I love when we hear the updates at church. Yeah. And you say, you are part of that generosity.
It's amazing.
Like, because of your generosity, you're part of all that work. And that's just like, that's so cool.
It is.
Yeah. Like I've never been to Scotland, but the fact that I'm getting to be part of that work in Scotland.
Isn't that awesome?
Like, it's wild to me, I just think that's crazy. Like that's
part of the joy of generosity, bro.
Yeah.
Is that I know when I invest in the kingdom of God, somehow, some way, he's going to use that to glorify himself and to make himself known to people who need to know him. Their lives are going to be touched. Lives are going to be changed. Like I always find it fascinating to think that there will be people in eternity that we will never meet while we're here that will be there as a result of us saying yes to God in this area of life.
Yeah.
And again, this is part of the joy of it, is when I say yes to God with my finances and with my money, bro, the kingdom expands and the kingdom grows, and I get to celebrate the fact that God put something in my hands so that I could be a part of that work. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, no, that's so cool. But so Pastor Rob, he preached out of Genesis 22, right?
Yep.
And it's this story that kind of gives us a great framework, or a great picture of God giving his first and best. And he uses Abraham to kind of share that story, right? And as I was thinking, I actually had a guy today at the gym stop me, and he was like, man, when I get to heaven, I'm going to ask Isaac, what the heck was he thinking? Right? Just because of everything like what was happening. Like, what were you run, bro? But no. So I just want you to walk us through that story real quick.
Yeah.
Just so if people didn't hear the sermon, they at least know what we're talking about.
Yeah. I'll give the Cliff Notes version quickly, but I mean, it's such an unbelievable story in Genesis 22, where God comes to Abraham and he commands Abraham to offer up his son as a burnt offering, to sacrifice his boy. And just as a reminder, this was the promised son. In Genesis 12, when God came to Abraham and said, I'm going to bless you, I'm going to make your name great, you're going to be the father of this great nation that's going to belong to me, promised him descendants, land to live in, worldwide blessing, all of these things. At the time, he had no kids. His wife Sarai was barren. And God's promising him he's going to be the father of this great nation, right? And God assured him a few chapters later in Genesis 15 that he would give him a son and make good on this promise. Well, Isaac was the promised son. And again, the craziness of the story is that Abraham and Sarah had the son when he was 100 and she was 90 years old. Yeah. So I always joke, man, that Abraham and Sarah, they were in diapers, changing diapers, man. Like that's how it went. And this kid is born, and just a few chapters later in Genesis 22, God's like, hey, I want you to give him back to me. Take him to this Mount Moriah, and offer him there as a burnt offering, which you got to understand what a burnt offering was, man. I mean, you see it better in the book of Leviticus, but a burnt offering, this was the most common offering that people made in the Old Testament. And to offer a burnt offering, you would have to, I mean, in this case, it was his son, but I'll speak in terms of an animal. The people would slit the throat of the animal, bleed out the animal, cut the body of the animal into pieces, and then burn it on an altar until it was completely consumed. And so here's God saying, do that with this promised son. Craziest part is that Abraham saddles up the donkey, gets his boy, gets the wood, goes to the place, and he's ready to do the thing, man. And one of the things that I loved that Rob said in the sermon, he quoted some pastor, I don't know who it was, but he talked about in moments like these where what God is calling you to do seems completely illogical. Like you can't see God as fickle, you have to see him as faithful, which is how Abraham saw him. If you go to that great chapter in Hebrews 11 where you see the hall of faith. This was the assurance that Abraham had in the character of God. Yeah. Like he was so sure that if God allowed him to go through with this sacrifice, that God would just raise his boy up from the dead to keep his promise. Mm-hmm. Abraham believed he is faithful. Yeah. God made a promise to me. God will not lie to me, did not lie to me. And so even if God lets me do the thing, he'll just resurrect my boy from the dead because he will make good on this promise. Yeah. This is how confident he was. And here's what's crazy, man. I mean, I'm assuming, this is me assuming, okay? I'm speculating and reading it a little bit. I assume that over the course of his life, Abraham had told these stories to Isaac. Mm-hmm. Because Isaac was not this like young little boy. Mm-hmm. He was a teenager at this point. Think about it, man. 16, 17, 18 years old. To your friend's point in the gym, if he wanted to, he could have ran from that old man. Teenager beats a 100-year-old man in a foot race any day of the week. He could have wrestled his old dad to the ground, bro. You ain't putting me on that altar, no way. But Isaac cooperated and obeyed, and he let it happen. Why? Because I think Isaac knew the promises because Abraham had talked to him about the promises. Mm. He knew that he was that son. Mm-hmm. And he cooperated with his father as Abraham cooperated with God the Father. And I think they both believed in this moment, no matter what happens, God will be faithful. Yeah. And he will make good on his word. And so at the very last moment, I mean, here he is, Isaac's on the altar. Abraham's got the knife raised and the angel of the Lord appears. Don't do it. I know that you fear the Lord. You haven't kept your only son from me. And the part of the story that foreshadows Jesus is at this moment, Abraham looks over and he sees this ram caught in a thicket by its horns. And I think the imagery here is fascinating because if you think back to the Garden of Eden, after Adam and Eve sin against God, and God is laying out all the consequences of their sin, you see creation come under a curse in Genesis chapter 3. He specifically talks to Adam about thorns, that the work that he called Adam to do in the world would now be hard and stressful, and that these thorns would be in play. All that to say, the sign of the curse in the garden in Genesis chapter 3 were thorns. So I get chills even saying it. Think about the imagery here. Abraham looks over and he sees a ram caught in the thorns by his horns. Remember what Jesus wore at Calvary? Mm-hmm. Crown of thorns for you and me. That the sign of the curse was placed on the head of our Savior. Mm-hmm. And it was at the cross where Jesus broke that curse forever. Mm-hmm. It's beautiful. And this is all foreshadowing Jesus. And Abraham took that ram and he sacrificed it in the place of his son. And he named that Mount Moriah, the place where the Lord will provide. And that's exactly what God did, two millennium later, 2,000 years later, is that Jesus came to that same mount. Yeah. Mount Moriah. This is Golgotha. And the Lord provided his own son there as a sacrifice for sinners like you and me, broke the curse of sin so that we could receive the gift of salvation and be restored back into a right relationship with the Father. It's such a beautiful story, a beautiful foreshadowing of this gift that God would give in his son to purchase our salvation, man. Mm. And again, it's just a beautiful reminder that God gave his first and best for you and me. Yeah. We didn't have to. We didn't deserve it. What a beautiful story. Yeah.
Mm. No, I mean, it's so crazy how much is in that little story that points to the gospel. Yeah, man. Something I was thinking about when Rob was preaching was I always think about, like, why did God wait so long? And he was probably building up Abraham's faith to get to the point where he would not doubt him at all. Yeah. Because he would turn back to Isaac. He's like, where's the sacrifice, Dad? Right. And he'd be like, oh, don't worry. The Lord will provide. Yeah. Isn't that crazy? Yeah. And maybe 10 years earlier, Abraham wouldn't have said that. Maybe 30 years earlier, he probably wouldn't have said that. But the fact that he was as old as he was and he's seen God move and work, he was able to say that. Yeah.
And maybe there's somebody right now that needs to say that same thing. Yeah. You're struggling with something, and the statement you need is, the Lord will provide. Mm-hmm. Yeah. whether it's reminding yourself or reminding that person in your life saying, well, how are we going to do this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Exactly what Abraham said.
That's
the
right,
Lord
man.
will provide.
Yeah, man.
And then look at the order that Abraham did that in, right? He trusted first, and then he worried about the provision later, right? So let's talk about that real quick. Like, how does that, like, what does that show us about how God works, right? Trusting first and then provision later.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think this is the pattern of Abraham's life. And there were moments where he got it very right, and there were moments where he got it very wrong.
Yeah, that's true.
So you think about Genesis 12, where the story starts. I mean, at the time, he's a pagan dude. His name is Abram. God would later change his name to Abraham, father of many nations. But he's living in this land, and God calls him to leave and to go to this other place. And God doesn't even give him direction yet on where he's going. He's like, just pack it up and go, bro. I'm going to bless you. This is what I'm going to do through you. But you're going to have to trust me, and you're going to have to go. And he packs it up and he goes, man. Mm-hmm. I always like to think how that conversation with his wife might have been, like, hey, I was hanging out and heard from the Lord today, and we got to move, And so they pack it up and they move, trusting that as we go, God will direct us in the way we need to go. Mm. That he will get us to that place that he is sending us. And so he took a step of faith, and he just trusted God to direct his paths. But, we can't forget there were times where he lied, he told lies. He didn't trust God. Mm-hmm. Lied to rulers of foreign nations about his wife. Oh, she's my sister, just for like safety reasons. Genesis 16, that didn't go great, when they were tired of waiting on God for that promised son. Mm-hmm. And Sarah's like, hey, why don't you just sleep with my servant Hagar, and she can have that promised boy for us. And dumb Abraham's like, yeah, I'll do that.
That's a great idea.
Culturally, it was an acceptable thing to do, but in the kingdom of God, that's never an acceptable thing to do. Mm-hmm. We're faithful to the woman that we marry, or women to the man that you marry. And so he didn't trust God in that scenario. But in Genesis 22, this was the ultimate test of his trust and his faith, and he passed the test.
Yeah.
What will you do with this son that I've entrusted to you? And here's Abraham saying, God, he's yours. Mm-hmm. If you want my son, you can have my son, and I'm going to trust you enough, as I said earlier, to make good on your word, no matter what happens in this scenario. And that is where I think as believers, we have to get to. We have to be those people who trust so deeply in the character of God and in the promises of God that we are willing to bank our lives on those things. If God said it, he will do it. Mm-hmm. And even if I can't see it right now, I will say yes to God and what he's calling me to do, because I know he's faithful, man. Mm-hmm. I love what Rob said in the sermon too yesterday. He said, when things seem illogical, you have to get theological. Mm-hmm. When you can't see it and it doesn't make sense, you just have to run back to the character and the promises of God, and you have to anchor yourself in who he is and what he's promised he will do. Yeah. And that has to be good enough for you to take a step of faith forward.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, well, think about what Abraham did, right? He was saying God will provide, and he didn't see any sign, So, I mean, even that's crazy. Yeah. And then for us, like, we might not see God show up in our, everyday, day-to-day thing, right? But we know that he's already provided in the person and work of Jesus, right? Mm-hmm. So when we look ahead, we're remembering that God did already give his first and best, right? Or when we look back, but then if we look ahead, we know that he's going to bring everything under Jesus' rule and reign. Right. And there will be one day where we won't need anything because we'll have everything that we need.
That's right.
And so how should remembering that God has already given his best help people trust him with what they're holding on to now? Mm.
Did you want to add something, Moody, before we go there?
Yeah, I was just thinking, Carlos, you had mentioned just the order of trust first and then provision later. Well, how's that show God usually works? And James, you hit on it. It doesn't mean that the Lord won't provide if you don't trust, right? It just made me think when you said that was like the moments that I didn't trust and God provided, compared to the moments that I trusted first and he provided, life just went so much easier because I trusted the Lord first. Yeah. Life just goes, so to that question, I just thought, I don't want people to think God's not going to provide for you because you did not trust in him, because I feel like that theologically people could kind of jack that up a little bit. I just think life goes a lot easier for you the moment you trust the Lord will provide. And then how he provides, he reveals that to you. And you just go, God, thank you so much. Because those other moments you're like, God, thank you so much. I'm an idiot. I wish I had just trusted you and not tried to take it into my own hands. For the control freaks out there that are like me. Well, I'm going to take it in my own hands. I know God's going to provide, but I got to make sure. Let me step 1, step 2, step 3. But when I go, all right, the Lord's going to provide, and he actually even gives me, I said step 1, 2, and 3. He gives me that actual plan. Man, it just went so much easier. I had less stress in my life. Wasn't worried, right? I didn't make all these other stresses on my family because I didn't trust the Lord first. Life just goes easier when you trust first, and then he provides.
Well, and dude, to your point, I think the reason that we fail to trust at times, like you're saying, is because God does not work oftentimes according to our timeline. And we grow very impatient, which again is what Abraham and Sarah did in Genesis 16. It's like, God's not moving fast enough. He told us he was going to give us this boy. He made us a promise, and he ain't making good on this promise. And so instead of trusting in him, we're going to trust in us, and we're going to do it our way. And yeah, it just frustrates things, dude. And it complicates things, and it hurts people. But that's the amazing part of Abraham's story, is that God graciously fulfilled his promise despite his idiocy and his sin.
So good.
You know, that God is so faithful, and he is such a truth teller that even when I take it into my own hands, like, all right, God, I'm going to do it. You know, he'll let me do it and screw it up and experience the consequences of my sin. And then God will keep his word to me. And I love what you said. It's like, man, if we could just learn to trust sooner, we would probably save ourselves from a lot of pain.
Now I'm thinking over here like that for a long time in my dating life, I was just trying to write my own love stories, right? And as you just thinking about like, hey, giving it to God and just trusting that he's going to give you what you need and also at times what you want. And the day that I said, you know what, God, I'm going to let you write my love story. Like a year later, I met Kara, you know? And just thinking that when we leave it up to him, he really does show up in great ways. And that doesn't mean like, you know, for the single people that you'll say that and then a year later it might happen. But it was just cool that I was so content in the Lord that whatever he decided to provide, I was going to be okay with because I was so content in him, you know? But then thinking about like, how do we help people remember that God has already provided and he's already given his first and best? Like, how do we help them remember that so that they can trust him now? Like with my example, like in their dating life or in their job or finances or whatever the case may be for that person. Like, how do we help them remember that?
Well, I think about, let me just pull this up on my phone really quickly because this is where my brain went. You know, I'm thinking about what Paul writes in Romans chapter 8, which if there is one chapter in the entire Bible, I would say you need to be real familiar with, it's this one. But what Paul writes in Romans 8:32, this is so good. He who did not spare his own son, but gave him up for us all, how will he not also, along with him, graciously give us all things? That's the key. When you're like, how do we help people remember? Well, we've got to keep pointing people back to this beautiful truth captured in John 3:16, that for God so loved the world that he gave his only son, that he did not spare his son, but gave him up for us all. That the God of the universe provided a perfect, spotless lamb for himself in his son, Jesus Christ. That God is both just and justifier. That when we were deserving of his wrath and his punishment, that God satisfied his own wrath by sending his son into the world to make a payment for you and me. And here's Paul going, hey man, if God did that for you, can't you trust him with everything else? If God didn't spare his own son to meet your greatest need, which is your spiritual need, don't you think you can trust him with all of your lesser needs? And the answer is absolutely yes. And so the point I'm trying to make is you have to keep your eyes on Jesus. And you have to remember the beauty of the gospel. You have to remember the story of Calvary. And you have to see what God gave for you. which puts you at ease, man. It's like, okay, I know I can trust him. And I know he'll be faithful to provide in all these other areas, man. I've got to keep my eyes on Jesus, run after him, seek his kingdom and his righteousness above all things. And God's word to me is all the other things that I'm just so worried about, he's going to take care of that for me.
Yeah. No, I love that. And it just points that when you have a relationship with God, like you're able to trust him, even if you can't see everything or see the outcome. Yep. And so what does that moment show us? Like when Abraham was trusting God and saying, hey, the Lord will provide, and not being able to see anything. What does that moment tell us about trusting God when we don't have answers yet?
I mean, that's a great question. And I mean, I think that you kind of alluded to it in what you said a moment ago, that if God has said it, even when you can't see it, he'll do it. That God is always true to his word.
Yeah.
And if he has made you a promise, you don't have to doubt the promise. Somehow, some way, God will come through on his word to you, on his promise that he made. And so even when it doesn't make any sense, you can still take a step of faith.
Yeah.
And you can trust God to come through for you. He will come through for you.
Yeah.
Somehow, some way, he's going to provide not just for you, but for himself. And again, the proof of that, the ultimate proof of that is seen in Jesus and in what he's already done.
No, that was good. That was a good answer. I'm not gonna lie. All right, so let's tie it back in, since we kind of started this conversation about generosity. So if generosity is meant to be a response to what God has already done for us in Jesus, what does that actually look like in our everyday decisions people are trying to make with their money, their times, their talents, their treasures, all the things? Like, how do we bring it all back?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's real practical, bro.
Yeah, I think back, I've given this example before, trying to teach my kids like first and best. How do I teach them before even talking about money? Because they're just not going to get it, at least right now. So I give the example of listening to music in my truck. So they love to jump in the truck. And first thing, my son's like, can I listen to my playlist? And half the time I'm like, no, because your playlist is awful. Like, it's whatever this music is I listen to. I sound like my parents when I was little now. But
I was about to say, you sound like an old man right now.
I sure am, man. You get in my truck, I'm an old man. So what I started was, yes, we can listen to your playlist, but the first thing we're going to do is we're going to listen to a worship song, because we're going to give the Lord our first and best in regard to the best song that honors him. Right, in priority, we're gonna sing a worship song, and then just best in regard to this is the best music, at least for us, for just uplifting, and then we can listen to your deal, and they've gotten used to that, right? So it's like, oh yeah, all right, so we get in the truck, all right, hey, play that worship, right? And now they love they're singing along to the worship song, they love it, and so starting with that helps us to then go, okay, if I give the Lord my first and best, maybe I'm an adult and maybe I'm getting in my truck and the first thing I do listen to is that podcast about Jesus instead of sports radio, right? Or it is that worship music, so I can have just maybe a moment of worship in the car before maybe I listen to regular radio. And then that begins to translate into other areas of life where you give your first and best in regard to time to your family, to the Lord. Well, to the Lord first, then your family. But you guys know what I mean. And then that's all a response to what the Lord has done, not checking boxes, and then that translate into your treasure.
Yeah. No, it's good, bro.
No, I mean, I agree. I'm just thinking of like everyday life. Again, like I said earlier, it starts with anything and everything, right? And so for me, when I give God, the first moments of my day, it helps me give him everything else. And so I'm trying to wake up a little bit earlier now. And one of the first things I do as soon as I get downstairs is I read a proverb and I read in the New Testament before I go work out, before I go run off and do whatever I need to do for the day. And that helps me already posture myself to give God my first and best. And that's why it's a little bit easier now to give money, because I'm starting my day with him. And again, it's a beautiful reminder of the gospel. When we see that God is giving you everything in Jesus, it's hard not to give him everything you got, right? And then also, like I told you earlier, I was reading this book called Imagine Heaven, and it just reminded me on how beautiful heaven's going to be in comparison to what we got. Like, and it just made, like, it literally, as I'm listening to the book, I'm like, dude, I just want to give everything. And I can't wait for that day. And then when you have like an eternity mindset, like, or eternity in your eyes, there's just something about, man, this world just doesn't hold on to you as tight, you know? Yeah. And so that practically, that's just me. I'm just trying to really give God my first and best in everything, and it just does make it easier to let go of the dollars that I have. You know?
It's what we say around here all the time, man. You can't take your money with you, but you can send it forward. Mm-hmm. And the way that you send it forward is in the form of people. That money makes a terrible master, but an incredible servant. And when you use it for God's purposes, for the advancement of his kingdom, to help get the gospel to people in places where it's desperately needed. As a result of that, you are storing up treasure in heaven, not treasure here on earth. You're not just piling up cash and stuff that stays here after you're dead and gone, but you're using what God has entrusted to you for eternal purposes. And that means that you're not only investing in the good of people, but you're also investing in the glory of God. Mm-hmm. And this is where I think that our greatest concern has to be. It has to lie with the glory of God. Why am I investing in the way that I'm investing? Why am I giving out of what God has given to me? Because I'm obsessed with the glory of God.
Yeah.
I want God to be honored and glorified in all that I do, even in how I steward my money. Mm-hmm. And the benefit of that is I help to get other people to where they need to be, man, into a relationship with Jesus, experiencing eternal life. And so when I think back at the question, if it's meant to be a response, it's like, if I truly believe what I say I believe, and if I know the person I say I know, which is Jesus, don't I want everybody else to know him? Mm-hmm. Don't I want everybody else to experience him? Don't I want everybody else to know eternal life with him? Yeah. And then that motivates me to open my hands and go, well, how do I use my cash to that end? Yeah. How do I steward this so that this is possible for other people? And again, when you do it that way, then God is being honored in how you're stewarding the money that is entrusted to you.
Yeah. No, I love that. All right. So as we close, what is that one thing that we can tell people to do, like to help them, give God their first and best, even when it feels uncomfortable or difficult? Like, what's that one thing that we can say, hey, this is what you need to do today? What you got, Moody?
Yeah, I'm going to get real specific. Yep. Here at Crosspoint City, and I'm speaking to Crosspoint City listeners, we are at almost the end of a 2-year discipleship journey called All to Him. And a lot of people, a lot of families made financial commitments. And man, the Lord has done immeasurably more than we could have ever imagined, right? And has set a new standard for what our church continues to do in regard to the work of God's kingdom. But there are also just a few families or folks that made a commitment, but maybe never started or just fell off. Yeah. And I think, man, and y'all can cut this out if y'all want, but my challenge that's really uncomfortable is I want you to, if you're the family, it's like, hey man, I made a commitment, but I never actually gave anything, or I made a commitment and we fell off 6 months in because life just got hard, man. Totally get it. Life does get hard and circumstances change. My encouragement would be, why don't you take a moment after this podcast and just seek the Lord and just say, Lord, what would you have me do? Right? Don't go online. Don't go send a check or anything because, again, you feel guilty or whatever. None of that. But God, if you are calling me to give something, Lord, would you show me how you're going to provide, right? And take that step like Abraham did with Isaac and just trust the Lord will provide. And so I think just practically it's going to be uncomfortable. It's not going to feel good, but maybe, this week, start back on that commitment and just see what the Lord does. Again, this isn't to meet a goal. Yeah. This is for you personally in regard to just doing what the Lord is calling you to do in your next step of obedience.
Yeah. No, I love that, man. That was really good. Something I was thinking about would be, like, if there's something that I could tell somebody to do right now, would be just picture yourself in eternity, like hanging out with Jesus, like just like 1,000 years from now. What would be the thing that you wish you would have done today? Like, it wouldn't have been, man, I'm so glad I saved so much money. or I'm so glad I watched so much TV or, read all these things. No, you'd be, man, I gave God my best. And I gave God my first and best. Like, that's what you would be saying. Like, and so for me, man, when you think about it like that, I mean, it's easier to respond because you are thinking about storing your treasures in heaven and not on earth. And so that would be, I just think, like, as that new believer or somebody who's just starting their journey of generosity, just think ahead of what you would do, like, when you're in that moment. Like, you're not going to regret everything you do for God today. You're just going to be glad you did it, right? So that would be my 2 cents. Just do that. Yeah. What you got, James?
Well, Moody stole one of my answers. I was going to say to pray, to truly seek the Lord and to just ask for His wisdom and His guidance and His help, But I to your point, we are coming to the end of this journey as a church. But I keep saying this. It's not like all of this is stopping because the journey is ending. Yeah. This journey we've been on for the last 2 years is all about growing in our surrender to the Lordship of Jesus Christ. So the hope and prayer is that this journey for many people becomes a lifestyle where we are striving each day by the power of the Holy Spirit to surrender every area of life to the Lordship of Jesus Christ. Yeah. How I spend my time, how I use my talents, how I use my treasure, whatever it may be. And so I just want to call our people to continue to wrestle with that question because this really is the question of, am I giving my first and best to God? Yeah. It is a question of surrender. Am I, in response to the great sacrifice Jesus made for me, giving my all to Him? Mm-hmm. And so I would say you got to wrestle with that motivation question. Why or why not? You got to wrestle to the ground what areas of your life you are still holding back from Him. And if one of those areas is generosity, here's what I can tell you, man. At some point, you just have to make a decision to lay it down. Yeah. That you have to push back on everything that you're feeling, all of the fears, all of the what ifs. And you just got to do what Abraham did and go, all right, despite how difficult this may be for me, I'm just going to put this on the altar, and God, I'm going to trust you with it. Yeah. Somehow you're going to provide. Yeah. God, I don't know. I just know you're in control, and you're good, and you're sovereign, and I know it's all yours anyway. And so, God, I'm going to push back on how I feel right now, and I'm just going to surrender this thing to you. And here's what I can promise you, man, all right? And I'd put money on this. Here's what I can promise you. Once you make that decision to surrender in that area of your life, the freedom and the joy that comes with that is a freedom and a joy that you will never experience otherwise. And it's worth it. Yep. It's worth it. So put it on the altar and trust God to be who God is.
Yeah, no, I love that, man. Well, I hope today encouraged you, also challenged you and equipped you to do the things that you need to do. But as you go, we just want you to know that we love you, we're here for you, and we'll see you guys next week. Peace.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Pursuit with James Griffin. Be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you'll never miss an episode. If you have questions about the message, the scriptures, or faith in general, you can send them to us by texting the word question to the number 22722. For more information about our church or this podcast, please visit crosspointcity.com or follow us online at Crosspoint City. If you found value in this podcast, we would love it if you took time to like it and share it with a friend. Doing that will help more people know and follow Jesus. And finally, we want to invite you to join us each week for one of our gatherings in person or live on YouTube. We hope to see you soon.